Hey guys, what's up? It's the Culture Detective here, investigating their favorite albums. And today I'm going to do a mini albums review. Yeah, I have a lot of albums to review. Albums that came out 12 billion years ago that I didn't have time to review, obviously. Look at me. Yeah, I'm going to talk about 6 of the albums. I'm going to do another mini albums review sometime later, maybe a week later. But right now, I'm just going to do 6, and I'm going to focus on these 6. So let's go! Starting off, we have the latest Rina Sawayama album, Sawayama. Uh, Japanese ethnically but born and raised in London, UK, pop singer-songwriter Rina Sawayama. She's back after a really impressive EP called Rina EP. I hope she gets a little more creative with the album titles. But actually, for this album, she collaborated with pop producer Clarence Clarity, whose album No Now ended up in my top 50 favorite albums of the decade. So, of course, I'm pretty happy with the production of this album. And this album is a slightly 90s, early 2000s R&B inspired futuristic art pop album that is somewhat cutting edge and has a lot of catchy hooks on it that I really enjoy. The album starts off with Dynasty, and it is an absolutely bombastic, grandiose, ambitious, epic intro with wild, jamming guitars, but at the same time juxtaposed with sweet, warped strings, booming, bashing drums, and amazing vocals. I really love the part where Rina just goes, which is really nice. And this song is essentially about, coming to terms about your own past, which is also a recurring theme on this album. The second track, XS, is an absolutely fantastic song about excessism, being greedy, being super rich, but you still want more money for some reason. And it's just super catchy. I mean, especially the chorus. Give me just a little bit, give me just a little bit, oh me, oh my. And the little jangly guitars is a really, really nice touch. And occasionally we get these descending metal riffs, which are really rough, and it just contrasts with the general vocals really well. And the music video, I don't know why, but Rina Sawayama's music videos are all really high production quality, like which is pretty cool for I guess an artist who is not like a veteran or anything. Anyways, STFU exclamation mark, or shut the fuck up, actually a single back in 2019, ended up as one of my favorite songs at the end of 2019, and it's on this album, and I still absolutely love it after like many, many, many listens. It is an incredibly awesome and creative and innovative new metal pop fusion with blaring, loud, soaring guitars, absolutely head bashing guitar riffs, and then we got loud, smashing drums. And then we get the very cutesy, lovely bridge, the very angry verses, and the loud choruses. Rina Sawayama transitioning super smoothly and naturally from her laughter to her singing vocals. Uh, really impressive feat right there. And the fourth track, Comme des Garçons, or Like the Boys, is a change in pace where it becomes a chill electropop disco track, and this track is about being confident like the boys. And I guess it's a pretty cool song as well. Of course, I love the synth bass of the thing, really well produced, just the right pitch. I love the clickety percussions of the thing and the whispery bridge towards the end of the thing. The ba, 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 ba. That's a really, really that's a really cool part, I have to admit. The track Akasaka Sad is a very Clarence Clarity heavy electro art pop track, given how eccentric its production is. The skippy vocal delivery by Rina Sawayama sounds almost similar to some of the contemporary pop artists nowadays, but she brings a bit of a eccentric twist to her vocals, making it stand out. And this track is essentially about how Rina Sawayama thinks her parents feel when they are immigrants in the UK when originally they are from Japan, which makes them sad and feel disconnected from the British society. And this track is actually really reflective and concerning as well, because if you know me, I am going to migrate to the USA. I'm actually not American. Wow, surprised. And this is concerning. This is concerning, guys. The next track, Paradisen, is a blast of just arena-sized pop-punk track with a muffled intro, and it has a really blissful soaring chorus, and this track is essentially about living recklessly. However, I think the track is a little bit monotone. Maybe it could be a little more, dynamic. The next track, Love Me For Me, is obviously a track about love and self-acceptance, and it has a really strong late 80s, maybe even 90s pop song, synth pop song, and this track is real easygoing and jumpy, and it's a really fun song as well, and the hits do not end. Next up, we have the track Bad Friend, which starts off as a moody ballad, and then it becomes a really loud and triumphant and righteous track. It has a pretty simple chorus, but what really carried the song is the layered processed vocals, which I think is a really nice touch. And then we have a Fuck the World interlude, which is literally the entire track is just fuck the world, fuck the world. Actually, there's more to that, but it's pretty much just an interlude. I wish that there is more going on the track, but the hook is still really solid. We have a track, Who's Gonna Save You Now, which I guess tries to mimic a live performance with the crowd audience chanting and all that stuff, and we get more heavy metal arena rock riffs and just a very strong and loud unapologetic hook on the track. I do like the track in the core, though the core melody is really nice, but the live performance, the production leaves a bit to be desired. The next track, Tokyo Love Hotel, is obviously a track about how Rina Sawayama cares about Japan, cares about her homeland, and where she's actually from ethnically. And my complaint about this track is that the instrumentals are kind of compressed, and the hook is actually a little tame. The second to last track, Chosen Family, however, is a really beautiful and emotional ballad about, connecting to people. Even though we're not connected genetically, you can still connect to the people around you. And the ending vocals are absolutely impressive and nice. And the album ends off with Snake Skin, which is a very loud and epic ending. We even have some Beethoven-esque melodies being used as the intro, which sets up to a very ambitious ending to the album. But the ending is just so multifaceted. Oh my god, please let me do my review in peace. The album is just so... The track is just so multifaceted, and it's everything thrown into the kitchen sink. And it's just sometimes very messy sounding with the bells and the hand claps, and it's very busy and jittery. While the core of the track is good, I still think it needs more clarity, like Clarence Clarity. Get it? But still, it's not a terrible ending to the album overall. I think the album is a really good, solid pop album. And my favorite track here is Shut the Fuck Up. And my least favorite track here is Paradisen. I am giving Rina Sawayama a decent 8 out of 10. Yay! Alright, second album, Laura Marling. Song for Our Daughter. Laura Marling is a British folk singer-songwriter who had dabbled into many different genres, but now finally arrived back to the not experimental, very straightforward folk music. And this album, while short, is actually an album about, mother daughter love, maternal love, and it's a really wholesome and warm and heartfelt album, which is really, really nice. The album opening, Alexandra, is a totally beautiful and wondrous opening. The folky guitars are really fantastic and refreshing. Kind of reminds me of the opening for Fleet Fox's Helplessness Blues, which is also very bare, very skeletal, but very refreshing and beautiful and humble. And the vocals by Laura Marling are actually very gorgeous. Oh my gosh, please give me a break. The second track, Held Down, is my favorite track on the entire album. It is a very relaxing folk rock song with bold, beautiful guitars, nice, easygoing drums, and the very beautiful, sunny, just sunshine, sweet, cascading vocal layers during the choruses are just euphoric. They're absolutely beautiful. And then we have the lyrics, they're very earnest and sincere. The next track, Strange Girl, has a bit of a Paul Simon vibe, while at the same time being more country inspired. We also get some really fun lyrics, which adds onto the very nice attitude, very fun attitude to the track. The track Only the Strong is a more low-key track with its finger-picked guitars and its moody, sad chords, but it's still a really beautiful track with its vocal layers. The track Blow by Blow is a little underwhelming, maybe. It feels a little average. It's a dreary piano ballad, essentially, with a wash of strings at the end. Not really a very memorable ending, but it still doesn't sound bad. The title track is absolutely heartfelt and loving because it is essentially a track for, her daughter, telling her to, stay strong, and telling her, I guess, encouraging her to continue to move on and sort of not be crushed by the people around her who are toxic or who wants to, take advantage of her. And it's a piano sing song, and it's absolutely sincere, and the strings are very lovely as well. The track Fortune is a chamber folk song, also a very tear-jerking and heart-warming song. The chords are absolutely beautiful, and same goes for the next track, The End of the Affair, which is a little more quiet but absolutely spacey, and it just sounds tragic. Oh my gosh. There's also a very thin, eerie drone on this track, and which is really nice. The second last track, Hope We Meet Again, is a sing talk song that reminds me a lot of Bill Callahan. The instrumentals are okay, but I guess the singing talking is just not really my cup of tea. It just sounds really jarring whenever she transitions from singing a really nice melody to, her just, talking. If there's one good thing about this track, it's that this track made me realize that she's British. The album ends off with For You, which is also a very relaxing and nice chamber folk track ending to the album. Very refreshing, very nice, and it actually reminds me a lot of Sufjan Stevens, except this track feels rawer emotionally and production wise as well. So yeah, overall, love this album. Really solid album, really lovely, heartwarming, and sincere. I am feeling a strong 8 on this thing. Decent to strong 8. My least favorite track here is Hope We Meet Again. My favorite track here is Held Down. Third album, Let's Go, Nicolas Jaar, Cenizas. So Nicolas Jaar is a New York French Chilean electronic producer who had been in the game for a very, very long time, and I have praised his work pretty highly in the past. Not only do I enjoy the micro house experimental electronic experience Spaces Only Noise, but his albums under the name Against All Logic are some of the grooviest, catchiest, most innovative, and just delicately produced house techno music. I mean, earlier this year, he already dropped an album under the name of Against All Logic called 2017 to 2019, and he had presented some really eye-widening, fun, danceable, yet strange techno music, and it's just really awesome. And I didn't know that he's gonna come out with another album in the same year, except in Cenizas, this album is an abstract ambient album. Yes. I've talked about this album a couple months ago, but I have to talk about this album again because this is just such a good album. I absolutely love this album. As far as ambient album goes, this is actually very versatile. The album starts off with Vanish, which is just, man, sounds like a post-apocalyptic abandoned church with its very broken and dejected, sad organs that are very bold but sour. The track Menysid has this really ambient, sort of vanishing bass line with some ghostly vocals hidden in the back, and then we get these very migraine inducing and strange and alien metallic zoinks and buzzes and blang. The title track is very fuzzy and lo-fi, and then we get the pianos, the fuzzy pianos, which sounds very sad and dejected. It's like the kind of music you'd listen to when it's raining outside, it's absolutely cloudy and depressing, and you're just in the indoors with air conditioning on the maximum. And we also get Nicolas Jaar's very haunting vocals. Actually, the background of releasing this album is that Nicolas Jaar actually isolated himself from the rest of the world for a very long time, and instead of feeling very positive and upbeat, he actually felt very sad, and I guess he had to face his own demons on this album. Well, guess what, Mr. Jaar? You picked the wrong time for isolating. Anyways, Agosto is another really sonically interesting track. We get these spooky horror-themed reeds, these ringing pianos with these Chinese pentatonic scale chords, and then at the end we get this really strange, demented, running synthesizer scratching. The next track, Gocce, also feel really similar, except we get these hammered dulcimers and these woody percussion, which sounds like a bird beak. Woodpecking. That's the word I'm looking for. And then we get these plucky tones. Again, the return of these pentatonic keys, and somehow at the end they all deconstruct and fall apart. The track Mud is a somewhat tribal but also dizzying track. We get these primal drums, fuzzy chants, and these jammy tones at the end, which adds up into a really strange but interesting experience. The track Vaciar is also very interesting, but actually more scary than it is interesting. It just sounds like a very strange piece of horror themed music. Perfectly fits into a very experimental A24 horror, psychological horror movie. We get these wheezy horns, these really warped, compressed strings that are very disturbing. The track Sunder has these very strange, cutesy, minimalist keys, which are sort of cycling around, sometimes jumps up like a really cute creature. I guess that's how I would describe it. The vocals are really low key, and it ends off abruptly, but I think overall tone wise, it's really interesting. The track Hello Chain is a drony piece of religious hymn and religious choir, and it actually throws back to the track Faith back on Against All Logic's 2017 to 2019 track. The track Rubble has these watery keyboards, scratchy, shuffly noise, reed sounds that sound really lonesome and minimally chaotic. The track Garden, not one of the best tracks here. I mean, it just sounds like a wave of pianos just spamming around, and it sounds like I'm being locked in an intro to a James Blake song. But the second to last track, Xerox, is actually pretty special. It's a drone piece with its very pitchy, deep drones, and then again, the return of the dulcimers, the glitchy edits, and it sounds really meditative, almost like I'm in Tibet. Even though I haven't been there, I wish I could go there one day. But this track reminds me of Tibetan bowls. At the end, we have Faith Made of Silk, which is strangely a bit of a minimalistic art pop track. With some groovy booming percussions and some ringing synthesizers and vocals that are very solid. And overall, I think this is an absolutely creative and innovative and versatile and sonically interesting ambient album, and I absolutely love it. I'm giving it a decent 8 out of 10. My favorite track here is the title, actually the opening track, Vanish. Least favorite, Garden. Fourth album that I'm going to be talking about is the latest Yves Tumor album, Heaven Through a Tortured Mind. I've also briefly talked about this album a couple months ago in a mini albums review video, but now I'm going to talk about it in full length, so here we go. So, Yves Tumor, he is an art rock, neo, psychedelic, soul, Brit pop, glam, rock, pop, fusion artist, and this is, I think, his sophomore album. And what surprises me the most about this album is its very kooky, disjointed, freaky production. It's just noisy, kooky, wild noise, and it adds a bit of a dementedness to the album, which I really like. But the album opener, Gospel for a New Country, absolute banger. I love the 4 kick beat intro to the track, the blaring horns. Totally fantastic and bold, and it just becomes a very tortured rock song with sensual but sad performances. I love it absolutely. The next track, Medicine Burn, is more of a miss than a hit for me. It sounds very messy and inconsistent, and it just sounds like a collage of all these noise without any rhyme or reason, like drum beats suddenly stopping, suddenly speeding up, layers of sounds vanishing and reappearing. It's pretty strange, but I guess props to Yves Tumor for producing some strange ass music. The third track, Identity Trade, is fantastic as well. It's a pretty groovy industrial track with some dejected vocals that feel detached, but yet somewhat cohesive at the same time. The track Kerosene! Is a really amazing, bold rock duet. That also sounds moody. It has blunt lyrics, a flashy, bittersweet guitar solo, and guitar chords that are also bittersweet and sounds pretty interesting. Has Dallin Lights is a low-key and relaxing track. It sort of fades in and out a little bit. We also get some muffled strings, which I wish would be put on the front line a little more, but overall it's not that bad. The track Romanticist is a very satisfying and gratifying Ariel Pink-esque ballad-ish track. And again, we get some bitter but at the same time cutesy chords on the track, which I really enjoy. The track Dream Palette, another highlight on the album, smoky, layered, chaotic instrumentals in the beginning. Later on, we get these harmonious vocals, which goes together really well, and it's just a collage of noise. These drum fills, sinister grooves, smashing beats, all coming together, except this time they feel like they really belong together. The track Superstars is a sweet and sexy soulful jam. And then we have 3 tracks, Folie Imposée, Strawberry Privilege, and Asteroid Blues, 3 tracks that I find somewhat underwhelming. The first one sounds pretty sleepy and mundane. And the second track, I do like the falsetto vocals and the really interesting production choices. And the third track is just a drum piece. But I guess what I like about these three tracks is how moody they sound, but they don't really do all that much to the overall context of the album, I guess. And I wish that there's more to them. The album ends off pretty nicely with A Greater Love, which is a decent soulful love jam with a jazzy ending, which is really nice. And overall, I think this album is a pretty good. Could be better, but you know what? I'm satisfied. I'm feeling a strong 7 to a light 8 on this album. My favorite track here is the album opening, Gospel for a New Country, and my least favorite track here is Folie Imposée, I guess, or Hasdalen Lights. Alright, fifth album that I'm going to be talking about is the Oranssi Pazuzu album, Mestarin, Kynsi. So Oranssi Pazuzu is an atmospheric, experimental, avant-garde black metal band from Finland, Suomen, and they are back. And this album, I didn't enjoy it all that much the first time I listened to it. I was turned off by the growls. Not that they're too loud or anything, but actually they're too thin, and they're not loud and scary and muscular enough. I like my metal growls very beastly and animalistic, but the growls of Oranssi Pazuzu, I wish it's more muscular and loud, but I guess what I really enjoy about this album is it's very disturbing, scary, atmospheric, sort of unhinged, ambiguous instrumentals. The album opener, Ilmestys, also translates to revelation in Finnish. Is actually a pretty interesting album opener. We get this repetitive, bitter guitars that just goes up and down a note, and we get these plumping bells in every bar. It just bung, bung, and it sounds like a really scary post-apocalyptic siren, and it sounds so drony and nasty, and towards the end we get these very strange, chilling alien keyboards, and it's just such a nice touch. The second track, Tu Huden Sacramenti, something sacrament, I forgot. Sounds like a pretty average Oranssi Pazuzu track, or last year I did a review on the Oasis Space Orchestra. Reminds me of that a lot, because Oasis Space Orchestra is literally Oranssi Pazuzu and another band. Anyways, on this track, I do like the busy, dirty, repetitive bass line that just keeps lurking around really chaotically. But come on, I've heard this before in previous Oranssi Pazuzu tracks. And it has a windy, drony background, which I really like. But then again, this track drags on for 8 minutes without much when it comes to change up. And I wish there's a bit more change. The third track, Uusi Technokratia. Spare me, I don't speak Finnish. Wow, I love this track. It has this really menacing ascending bass line, and then we get these flutes, these woodwinds. They're just chugging flutes. And then in the middle of the track, we get this female choir just ba 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 ba, and it's very urgent and strange, and it's really creative. Not gonna lie. This track is translated to New Technocracy. And then we have the fourth track, Oikea Mielisten Sali. I can't speak Finnish. Oikea Mielisten Sali, the Righteous Hall. And I also really like this track. We get these very scary, deformed, falling strings that are just deforming and malfunctioning. And then we get this pumping beat that sounds very demented and scary, and then it has a very loud payoff at the end with its wailing synthesizers, which is absolutely bold and epic. Then we have the track Kuulen Ania Man Alta Kula Pohutko Suomi. Anyways, I actually like this track a lot as well. I mean, we get the glitchy, scary keys, which sounds very ambiguous. It's almost like we're trapped in a state of trance, of ambiguity. And then we get the very animalistic drums, and this track quickly evolves into the nastiest track on the entire album, and it ends off with these very superficial synth keyboards, which is just very flashy and loud, and it just transitions into the album ending, Taiwan por ti, which translates to the gates of heaven. And I don't really like this track, not really. It's basically a wall of noise. And that's the entire track. Not really much in terms of dynamic or change up. I guess it serves as a very loud, epic ending to the album, but it really doesn't sound like it. It just sounds like a wall of noise. But overall, I'm actually pretty satisfied with this album. I'm feeling a light to decent 8 on the album. My favorite track here is Usi Technokratia, and my least favorite is Taiwan por ti. At the end, as for my 6th album, I would like to do a review on the latest EOB, or actually the anagram for Ed O'Brien, with the album Earth. Now, Ed O'Brien, do not underestimate him, because he is the lead guitarist of Radiohead, which, if you don't know, you should know this, my favorite band of all times. I've been a Radiohead fan for 4 years now, and none of the band came close to, actually Death Grips came close, but none of the band became my favorite. Radiohead is still my favorite. And Ed O'Brien, you may know him from him shouting his own name during Karma Police and Weird Fish's Arpeggi, and also him providing some nice backup vocals on tracks like There There. But now this is his first solo record, and I have to admit, it's kind of disappointing. This album sounds like a very grade B Walmart washed down version of Hail to the Thief era Radiohead, with very strong influence from Damon Albarn of Blur and Gorillaz fame. The album opener, Shangri-La, not really all that impressive. I do like the scratchy guitars, but then the hooks and the choruses, they're just not very memorable. I mean, something about this album that's just missing. I mean, none of the tracks sound terrible. They all sound okay. But something about this album that's just missing. Maybe a strong hook, maybe a strong sense of experimentation or production, maybe a character, some sort of personality, some sort of attitude. Something's just missing about this album. The track Brazil starts off very forgettably with some low-key guitars, basically a sad ballad, and that's it. And then for the second half, we get this pounding, very repetitive pounding beat, which I thought sounds good in and of itself. It has good production, but it just doesn't make any sense at all. The pounding beats at the end just doesn't match with the slow, raw ballad in the first half. The track, Deep Days, is even more head-scratching. It sounds like a jazzy, charismatic, slow groove song, but it just ends up sounding awkward. I don't know if it's because it has a lack of good creative chord progressions, a lack of strong vocal performances, a lack of hooks or choruses. I don't know. We have the track A Long Time Coming, which is this sunny guitar ballad with very deep, just buried vocals. The track Mass is this atmospheric guitar ballad completely buried in reverb. And then we get this very noisy, grinding bass in the second half, which is very confusing. The track Bangsters is actually one of the better tracks on the entire album. Actual solid songwriting. This track does give me a bit of a Coldplay, like early Coldplay vibes, but still I like the chords of the track, and the vocals is not bad. One of the more upfront vocal performances on the entire album. The track Sail On is another track that just drags on, and the whole track is so buried in reverb. It's trying to do this atmospheric thing, but it's just so buried in reverb, and there's no personality whatsoever. I mean, the lyrics are just sail on, there's no core, there's not really any substance to the track. It's really confusing. The track Olympic, however, easily the best track on the entire thing, 8.5 minutes long. multifaceted. We get some interesting sounding shuffly percussion and some interesting sound play on this track, and the vocals are not bad as well. And the album ends off with Cloak of the Night, featuring Laura Marling, whom I've mentioned earlier in this video. And this track is just an average ballad, I guess, just an average duet, nothing all that special, nothing all that heartwarming or spectacular. Pretty underwhelming ending overall, pretty unambitious. So yeah, I'm pretty disappointed with this album, even though it's not bad. Feeling a strong 5 to a light 6 on this thing. Favorite track here is Olympic, least favorite Sail On. So, have you listened to these 6 albums? From 1 to 10, how much did you rate them? Like if you like them, hate if you hate them, and subscribe if you want more. And thanks for watching. I will be reviewing more albums. I need to have dinner now. It's already 8:30. Bye!